Hey everybody, Niraj Chhabra with Sidebar Advisors. Hope you are doing well. Today's guest is Dylan Adams, a patent attorney with Davis Wright and Tremaine. Dylan helps companies of all sizes protect their important ideas and inventions with clients ranging from Fortune 100 companies to startups, including Shark Tank contestants. He has experience with both US and foreign patents on a wide variety of technology, including robotics, software, computer hardware and devices, e-commerce, mechanical devices, and designs. Dylan is the author of Patents Demystified, which is the book that provides inventors, startups, and entrepreneurs an insider's guide to the patent process. It has been recognized as the #1 Amazon bestseller in patent books and in intellectual property books, and is the official patent guide of the American Bar Association. Patents Demystified is also in use at top universities, including Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. Dylan has been featured as a patent expert on CNBC's hit show, The Profit, with Marcus Lemonis. Dylan, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. So obviously very impressive backgrounds in science. How did you become so fascinated with robotics, engineering, and all these things? And did you know that you wanted to parlay this into a legal profession, or were you thinking that you had a different career path
Yeah,
early on?
honestly, I really had no idea what I was going to do early on. I started in college. My dad was a professor of viticulture and enology, as in grape growing and winemaking, but he was a plant biochemist. And so, I kind of followed in his footsteps, and I was doing biochemistry and molecular biology. And I actually had been in a band when I was in high school, and this band signed onto a label, and I actually got an opportunity to quit school for a while. I actually quit school for 2 years in the middle of undergrad and toured up and down the West Coast, and cut an album, and we had a band house. We were on full salary with the label, and that's when I realized that I loved business, and that's what really got me excited about actually doing business instead of, doing some sort of science. And so when that sort of ended, I went back to school, and I knew that I wanted to go to law school and use my technical background to be able to work in law or with business. And so I finished my biochem degree and went to law school, and then realized, hey, because I have this technical background, I can actually sit for the patent bar and become a patent attorney. Because, to be a patent attorney, you have to take a special bar. You have to have a technical background, because I have to understand the inventions of my clients as well, if not better than them. So, I kind of parlayed my biochem degree into into being a patent attorney. Ended up then going and getting a master's in electrical engineering, and that's really my practice now, is mostly computer related things, like you're saying, stuff like computer hardware, robotics, things like that.
So what did you see yourself doing originally? I mean, obviously, like, how did you get introduced to law specifically? Because it didn't seem like that was the path you set
Yeah,
out
it was
for.
kind of a circuitous route to becoming a patent attorney in the law. And I even remember early on in my life, I was like, oh, I would, why would I become an attorney? That makes no sense. Why would I ever do that? It was really just, in a lot of ways, I saw law as a way to work in business. And initially I thought, well, even if I never practice a day in my life as an attorney, I want the skills to be able to, work in business and have the critical thinking of an attorney. And I wanted to go to law school instead of business school. And, coming from a band, I kind of had a performative aspect about me. And I thought, hey, maybe I could be a trial attorney. And there were things like that. I saw like shows like Law and Order, and, thought, oh, yeah, I could do well in the courtroom. Although being a patent attorney, I never go to court. Last time I was in court was when I got sworn in as an attorney. So, not a part of my practice at all now.
I was talking to somebody else yesterday who was saying, like, in his 25-year career, he's been to court 3 times, including the time that he was sworn
Yeah.
in. Definitely want to get back to this band thing, because I'd be remiss if we didn't discuss it. But before that, you mentioned, you know, deciding to go into law over business school, even though you were, very interested in business. Was it because of your analytic mind and you felt like the law was more scientific? Is that part of it, or what made you choose law over, getting your MBA in business or marketing or
I
something
just felt
else?
like law was going to be better for analytical thinking, and kind of a harder degree in a lot of ways. The more of a challenge, and something that I could parlay into a lot of different things. I could be a practicing attorney, I could be a CEO, I could go in house at a company, work at firms. Whereas if you just have a business degree, it's more limited. I could do do all the things with a business degree and more. And in a lot of ways, I've always been entrepreneurial. And so, I kind of have taught myself a lot of the business sort of stuff. And so I was kind of looking for more like the analytical thinking and being able to potentially practice as an attorney.
So let's rewind a little bit. You did mention this band. I got to ask a lot of questions. What kind of music did you play? How did you meet your bandmates? How did you reach the decision that you were going to actually quit school to pursue music? Let's start
Yeah,
there.
so it started out, it was me and 4 friends. We had an a cappella group. We started in 6th grade, and we were doing one song for like a school play. And we kept on doing it all the way through junior high and high school. And we actually did a couple albums. And it was just a cappella, just 4 guys doing a cappella. And the label that they weren't a label at that point. The recording studio that we were working with to do our second album, they were starting a label, and they really liked what we had going on, but realized a cappella is really niche. And they said, well, hey, we want to sign you as sort of our flagship band, but you need to kind of make it more of a pop thing. So we started playing instruments. We added some girls to the band. So it was 6-part vocals with guitar, bass, keyboard, drums, and I did turntables. And so we turned it kind of more to a pop band. And that sort of developed over time. And it was kind of after I was a couple years into undergrad, that's when they said, hey, we want you to go full time. And they put us on salary. We had a band house. And so yeah, for, almost 3 years, I was full time in a band, doing an album, did a music video and toured up and down the West Coast. But then ultimately the label had a lot of money, but not a lot of connections. And so they just couldn't get us, the radio play they wanted, and they were hoping to get our video on MTV, and that never happened. And so, that ended up kind of falling apart at some time. Great experience, but, something that just, ran its course at some point.
How did your parents react when you told them that you were going to quit college to to join an a cappella band or tour as with your friends since 6th grade?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a great question. So, my parents were really, really supportive, which is, and because they trust me and want me to do interesting things with my life, but at the same time they were totally scared, especially my dad, who like I said, he was a college professor, and school is really important, and he was very supportive, and supportive in the sense that he didn't say anything negative, but I know that he was really, really scared and worried about. Oh yeah, totally. But they never said anything negative about it, and knew that I kind of needed to take my own path and trusted me. But yeah, I give them a lot of credit for not being negative about it, when it's really scary to just like bail out of undergrad in the middle and go and be a part of a band. It was at the time it was probably really risky to them.
I mean, there's a lot of impressive things there. I mean, number one, that you've had friends from 6th grade all the way to college that were all on the same page, all of you were able to convince your parents that this is okay in order to do it. So very impressive. And maybe at a different time, there would have been more of a demand for your type of music. Really cool though. So what did it feel like once you had to go back to college? I'm going to use the word had in quotations. Like, what was that decision like? The band didn't work out and you're just like, okay, well, at that point, might as well go back and finish my degree. Is that what was the thinking was?
Yeah, exactly. So if anything, I went back to school and I was completely motivated. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, because before, I went to high school and then went to college because that's what you do. And, I was kind of majoring in some stuff and I wasn't super excited about it. I thought, well, maybe I'll go to med school, or maybe I'll, become a professor. And I didn't really have a direction, but I came out of the band thing just super focused. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to law school, and I really just then powered through undergrad. It was a matter of weeks. The band thing sort of ran its course, and I quit that, and then I was actually back in classes 2 weeks later, and I was just super focused at that point. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and like I said, like that was so important and so formative to me. That really is what I feel like focused me on what I wanted to do, kind of next steps in life. I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be a patent attorney. But I was really motivated and knew what I wanted to do with my life at that point.
So how did you get into, patent law? I mean, you obviously sat through the exam, and were you working as an attorney prior to sitting for the patent bar, or did you just go all the way through and then start working?
Yeah, so to be a patent attorney, you like I said, you have to take this patent bar exam, and so you can take it as long as you have you have an undergrad degree
Undergrad in
in
science.
yeah, in science or engineering something. You can take it at any time, and you're what's called a patent agent. And so I actually, in my first semester of law school, studied for the patent bar and passed it. And I started out as a patent agent. And initially I was like, hey, I'll just have this and, maybe I'll be able to get a job. But people sort of heard that I'd done this. And then people started referring me clients. And so I was like, well, okay, fine. I'll create a firm. So I created my own practice for a while I was in law school. And then there was another guy who had done the same thing. He was a year ahead of me in law school. And he said, hey, why don't we join together? Let's create a firm together. So we created this firm. We had like offices downtown. We had staff, and we even had an attorney working with us doing business stuff. And so in a lot of ways, I was doing almost the same stuff that I do now while I was in law school, and had this firm. That ended up breaking up just because he graduated earlier. He became an attorney, and there was issues with attorney, non-attorney profit sharing. But yeah, I kind of was able to practice in a lot of ways, starting, at the end of my first year in law school. It was kind of fun.
So, okay, so you started a business your first year of law school. I'm imagining that's the first business you've ever started, correct?
Yeah, aside from the band and, kind of little side projects. Yeah, that was the first major business. Yeah.
How did you balance, because it seems like this business went on for a couple of years and you were getting clients. How did you balance, studying for law school, which can obviously be very demanding. Many people decide not to work during law school while running a business. It's one thing to be an employee of a company, but another thing to run a business at the same time. I mean, was it a growing business? Was it a successful business? Obviously it dissolved, but what was that like, that balance?
I loved my practice. And so, that was my focus. That's what sort of drove me to, to finish law school. And it's like, hey, I just want to be done with this so that, I can practice more. And it was just a good balance because I don't know if you know about law school. It's very, I don't know, like theoretical and analytical and books and
Practical application.
yeah, being able to work with clients and be able to work with technology and just, be in business like that. That's what I really, really enjoyed. And so it was sort of, that was the thing that I really wanted to be doing. And especially the second year of law school gets a little bit easier. First year, it was really hard to have a balance, but yeah, second and third year, you can kind of, it's easier to, put school on the back burner, and I was able to get the grades that I needed to get, and, take easier classes and things like that and do externships and things like that. So, I was able to keep a balance, but it was definitely hard, but it was easy to do just because it was really fun.
Mm-hmm. So you enjoyed it, and that's kind of what drove you to complete your degree. You were motivated. What was your first, I'm going to call it, external job, outside of the business that you ran once you graduated?
So, like I said, so that one firm ended up breaking up just like I had a bunch of clients and stuff, and just because of the attorney, non-attorney profit sharing thing. And so I sort of transferred all my clients to a boutique firm, and that was sort of my first job.
Started your job with a book to a certain degree?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
So
were they like reoccurring, was it reoccurring revenue? Were these transactional clients? What were they?
So as a patent attorney, my focus is on planning patent protection, drafting and filing patent applications at the USPTO, and then working them through the examination process. And so a lot of these clients, they were at various stages of the patent process. And a lot of times I'd filed a patent application for them, and it takes typically 1 to 3 years before the examination process begins. So we sort of had a lot of these folks in the pipeline already that we'd filed patent applications, and then, a year or so later, then the examination process would begin. So I had a lot of clients like that who, examination would pop up, or they had new inventions. We filed new patent applications, and there were always new clients coming in. So I started out with it wasn't a great book of business, but it was something. And I think that was one of the things that firm liked. It's like, hey, we don't have to keep you quite as busy. You have your own clientele, and you're growing your own book.
So you were able to bring your existing clients and just kind of use the resources that this firm had, as opposed to them giving you clients and having to pay you for time that otherwise you'd have to market yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And although they definitely did give me a lot of work, and that was really why I wanted to join a firm. I thought about, hey, I could just kind of stay off on my own and have my own firm, or start another firm. But I really wanted to work with people who'd been doing it for a long time and get some mentorship and get access to bigger clients. That was a lot of it too. Is I kind of had a lot of small individual inventors and really small startups. But I really wanted to learn how to do patent practice for large companies as well. And that's kind of what I wanted access to and got with merging with another firm.
How did you get your clients? I know that you're saying they're smaller, but were you marketing? They just coming organically? Like, how did you get in front of the first group of clients that chose to work with you?
In the beginning, just we were trying everything. One of the things we did, and I certainly don't do this now, but we put ads on Craigslist and put it like in every city. Since and because we are because patents are federal, I can represent clients literally around the country, around the world. I've had clients in Europe, even in Cuba before. So really, I'm not jurisdictionally limited like a lot of attorneys are. So yeah, we start off, putting ads in Craigslist and doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And, like some of the worst clients ever came out of that. You get weird calls from people. But at the time,
Attorneys aren't marketing on Craigslist, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, we had a website and, that was a way to, kind of build the book from the very beginning, just get experience with, just learning how to handle clients and learning how to, bring them on and just that whole process. It was such an important thing to do because I wouldn't be able to be where I am now if I didn't learn how to handle clients, kind of in that early stage. And I always kind of tell people who are coming up and being attorneys is, hey, you really need to, practice in a lot of ways. You don't just land these big clients and know how to handle them. You have to sort of learn and, have some experience. And starting with small clients is a good way to begin.
The clients that the firm was helping you get, the bigger ones, what kind of cases were you working on? And, obviously it's stuff that you wouldn't have gotten on your own. They have their own clients and everything like that. Do you remember your first notable piece of work that they handed you to work on?
The firm that I was working with, they represented a big sort of technology company here in Seattle that did a lot of like audio video stuff. And so I helped them with their patent portfolio, probably working on, few hundred patent applications related to like audio and video processing. That was a big one. And they're, definitely not as big now, but they were really a big name kind of back in, 2000, 2009, kind of that time. Yeah. And that was like so exciting. It's like, it was a big kind of like, had a startup atmosphere and had these cool offices. And it was just like so awesome to be able to, work with a client like that. At the time it was just like so exciting.
So what made you ultimately leave that firm?
I kind of wanted to move to another firm. The opportunities were sort of starting to dry up there, and I saw more opportunity at sort of a larger boutique firm. And so then I moved my practice at that point to another boutique firm.
And were you finding that they were able to help you grow your practice, continue growing your practice, or not so much?
It ended up being kind of stagnating in some ways, and that's actually what motivated me then to go back to school and get my master's in electrical engineering. Just because I always had difficulty having companies want to bring me on because, my technical background didn't match the work that I was doing and wanted to do, which was computer stuff. I'd been doing computers for almost all my life. I've been building web pages, so I was very comfortable with that sort of subject matter. And yeah, exactly. And so I just didn't have the right degree, sort of the street cred to be able to show that I could do the work. And so it was sometimes hard to put me in front of clients, and hard for me to go find clients like that. And so when I was at that firm, I was like, yeah, like what should I do? And it's like, it seemed to make sense to go back and get a master in electrical engineering. And that made a huge difference. Like actually, once I was even in the program, then I started to kind of pass my resume around and immediately got an offer from this really huge firm called Orrick, which is, one of the largest firms, in the country. It's like, so suddenly I was starting to really get traction with my practice, and it was a lot easier to, bring on bigger clients doing computer stuff. And I sort of had that street cred then that said that I could work on that stuff, even though, I was able to do it before. And not to say that, my master's wasn't helpful, but, I was able to do the work before, just as much as I am able to do it now.
So did you decide to work with Orrick?
I worked with Orrick for a long time, but they're mostly a litigation shop. And, I kind of got in there and, I realized a patent practice like mine, where you're doing the drafting applications and the examination process, that's like a secondary or tertiary practice focus, and I was never going to be able to make make partner at a firm like Orrick. I would have probably had to move to the New York office and become a patent litigator, and that's just not something I wanted to do. And I loved Orrick, really great people, really great firm, but I knew long term that I just wasn't going to be able to become partner and really grow my practice there. They didn't really have quite the infrastructure that I needed to really grow a practice, and that's when I moved my practice at Davis Wright Tremaine. And I've been here ever since. And I plan to be here, for the rest of my career. I think it's a great firm, great people, great infrastructure. So I'm really happy here. I kind of bounced around for a while for various reasons, but yeah, I think I'll be here, the rest of my career. I don't see any reason for leaving.
Tell us a little bit about the firm and what made it a better fit compared to some of the others. I understand Nick and an Orrick may have been, small fish in a big pond type of thing, and some of the other firms might have been too small. But what made this the Goldilocks firm for you?
A lot of it was the right infrastructure. So the way to do patent practice right, you have to have it staffed the right way. And there was a new partner who had really been growing the practice and been making some big changes in the patent group. And I could really see that he wanted to build something great, and was a really great guy, really great leader. And so that was what really attracted me to Davis Wright Tremaine. In addition to the name, I mean, it's one of those AMLaw 100 firms and really well known in the Pacific Northwest. And so it seemed like a really good fit, and has ended up being amazing for me.
And how many people were in the group?
It wasn't that big of a group. It was only maybe 10 people in the group, but now we have like 40 something people in the patent group. Yeah, I mean, more like probably like 50 now. Yeah, it's really blown up in the last several years.
And you've gotten some obviously very notable recognition, including clients that have been part of Shark Tank as contestants. You've wrote a book. You were on, the Profit. Is it a chick? I'm curious. Is it because it's like a chicken or the egg thing? Did you get that exposure because of the firm, or did the firm? How did you get those opportunities? I guess is the question.
For instance, like being on the Profit, actually, it turns out that Davis Wright Tremaine represents the production company that does it, and they sort of had to call out and be like, "Hey, are there any patent attorneys who have media experience who want to go on the show?" And I was like, "Oh, absolutely, that's totally my thing."
That was your opportunity to take your band experience and get in front of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. I have my YouTube channel, and so I kind of had been doing some camera work, and I'm sort of I always kind of like doing those sort of things. So yeah, it was sort of a perfect fit. But things like the book, I'd wanted to write a book of for a long time, and like I was kind of telling you earlier, I always wanted to be able to give my clients some sort of guide to the patent process. And there were just really no good books that were relevant. So there's a lot of stuff about how to do it yourself, which is not the way to go. And then there's a lot of technical law books, about patent law, but that's just too high level and not relevant to clients. And so at some point I was like, hey, I should just write this book. And so, I wrote a sample chapter and sent it off, and got a publishing agent, and then she shopped it around, and the American Bar Association picked it up, and they decided they wanted to be our publisher, and it was just it was amazing. Then I had to write the rest of the book, which took another year
to get the official stamp of approval from them, and I guess that's what kind of got you into some of the law schools. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, exactly. So it was my publisher. They're the ones who kind of got it into places like Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and all that kind of stuff. I wish I could take credit for all that, but yeah, no, it's my publisher doing all that.
And did you go with? I'm not familiar with publishing at all. Was it with a big publishing company that people recognize, or was it like a small independent publisher that just happened to hit it big?
So the American Bar Association has their own publishing wings.
You had a different publisher before they picked it up?
Oh, no, that was my publishing agent.
Agent, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, my agent then shopped it around.
And got it in front of the American Bar Association. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. The way to get big publishers is you get a publishing agent, and they know, they have connections with people, and immediately she's like, oh yeah, I know the people to shop it around to. I deal with these kind of books all the time. And, it is possible to do it yourself, but, I kind of wanted to get an agent so I could, get those connections and things like that. Yeah.
And I take it that at this point you get royalties from every time the people continue to buy the books because they're assigned in something to do with law school?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, totally. Yeah. So it's a nice passive income
That's great.
stream.
That's awesome. Going back to the Prophet with Marcus Lemonis, what was that experience like for you? Obviously, that's a national presence, you have a good YouTube presence. It's different thing to be on, primetime cable. What was that experience like? What was it like meeting him? And I saw the interview with him. How did you feel? Was it nerve-wracking?
No, it was really fun actually. I enjoy doing these kind of things. In a lot of ways, it was kind of the same stuff that I do with my clients all the time. So they flew me down to LA and they actually, like put me up in a hotel and stuff. And then they said, okay, well, we don't know where we're going to be shooting. And then they said, okay, we're going to be at this coffee shop. Meet us there. And so, I like got in an Uber, went to this coffee shop. Initially met with Marcus for an hour and on camera, kind of just talked about patents generally, and then they brought in Coco Vinny, who was sort of the subject of the episode, with this product called Coco Taps, which is essentially you kind of put this tap into a coconut and you can kind of drink out of it, and it was kind of sad in some ways because Coco Vinny, didn't understand what was going on with his patent applications, and the firm that he was working with was kind of taking advantage of him, and he just didn't really know what was going on. And so I kind of I found the issues that were happening with his patent application. He had no idea what was going on, and I felt kind of bad because he was a bit blindsided by some things. But yeah, working with Marcus was great. Marcus is a super nice guy. Coco Vinny was really nice. Even though I kind of felt bad about kind of how things ended up with with him and Marcus, because Marcus decided not to work with him. But yeah, it was a really good experience and really fun. Hopefully I get a chance to do more appearances like that.
That's awesome. And how about, working with Shark Tank contestants? I mean, you work with such a wide range of companies, like you said, Fortune 100 to startups, but how did you specifically end up working with them? Because I would imagine everybody's, reaching out to them once they make an appearance on TV and asking for their business. How you have more than one client that you've gotten exposure to. So how did that come about?
A lot of it is just kind of me being lucky. These clients come to me. I really don't do a lot of outreach to people specifically. A lot. It's things like the book and word of mouth and sort of through the firm. Actually, one of the Shark Tank contestants, she was a friend of somebody at the firm, and the woman who was on Shark Tank, ask her friend, hey, do you happen to know any patent attorneys? And, this woman who was in the firm said, oh, hey, I totally know the guy for you. And that's usually how I get my clients. It's word of mouth and, kind of my reputation. I don't tend to do outreach to try to find clients. I like to, have people know that they want to work with me, and those tend to be better clients.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of the companies that are coming on the show, they're small mom and pops, a lot of average Americans that this is probably the first time they're working with an attorney, and they have a hard time working with somebody who is so big, working with such a big firm compared to what they were expecting? Is there some sticker shock with your billable rates and everything like that, or are they just like, no, we want the best, and if this costs, it costs what it costs?
I structure my practice so that it's going to be affordable to those people. There certainly is sticker shock with my billable rate, which is absurdly high. But, again, I structure my, how I do things to make it affordable and to fit into the life cycle of startups and entrepreneurs and things like that. And so, on a project basis, it's not all that expensive. I mean, I'm certainly not inexpensive, but at the same time, that's why they come and work with me, because they know that, I'm doing more than just filing a patent application. It's more than just paperwork. It's strategy that's going to help their company and building assets that are going to be worth way, way more than what they're paying me for the patent work. And that, I understand startups and I understand the life cycle of startups. I've taken companies that have been just sort of a couple people in a bench in an incubator to closing $100 million rounds, 10 years later. And so I sort of know how to grow startups from a patent standpoint, and people want that in their attorney. That's kind of why people, want to work with me and are, willing to pay the higher rates for things.
Do you ever do other than just billable hours, type of thing, or project based at like exchange for equity or any other type of creative deal structures, or is that typically not the way you operate at the firm?
No, yeah, and because it kind of can be a conflict of interest. I know that some firms do that or, kind of try to. I just don't like the conflict of interest aspect of it, just
Mhm.
because, then
It's
it
cleaner
gives.
this way.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot cleaner when, hey, just I'm billable rate, and it just keeps things a lot simpler. In some ways, it would actually be really fun. I wish that I could do something where, almost like I would do it fully on equity,
Mhm.
and I'm kind of
If
more
you
like
really
a.
believe in the company.
Yeah, exactly. But that would just like completely change, sort of the business model, and I don't think our firm would be okay with that. But in a lot of ways, in another life, I think it would be fun to, like work in venture capital or be a, angel investor or something like that. Because, I have a lot of experience with startups and I kind of see, what works and what doesn't, and kind of be a, be an investor, but then also get in there and, help them build a patent portfolio and do it for equity. Something like that could be really fun, but, not with my current business structure, unfortunately.
How are you finding that the patent industry is changing, with technology evolving, with regulations, with obviously some overseas challenges that the US is encountering? How has that been impacting your day-to-day role?
I think the biggest thing that is going to change is AI. There's a lot of products coming out that are going to really streamline drafting patent applications. But there's still a lot of difficulty with getting products that are going to be one, safe in terms of data privacy and security, because everything that we put into that, it's kind of a black box. You don't know what is saved and where it's going, and so a lot of firms are hesitant to use AI. So like our firm has our own AI products, and then a lot of times they're concerned about hallucinations in AI, and creating wrong answers. There's like great examples where somebody said, "Hey, write a legal brief," and it totally hallucinated all these case sites. But it's a lot of times people don't understand. Generative AI is so good in certain domains and terrible in others, and you sort of have to understand that back end of where it's strong and where it's not. So I think that people are going to get better at one, building AI that works well for drafting patent applications, and then also in using it. But that's the biggest thing that I'm seeing, is that's really going to streamline the process of drafting patent applications.
Another question I had is, you obviously have a strong YouTube following. How did you build it? Because it's not something that you typically see in law. I mean, more and more people are doing that, but it's helpful. It's getting you some exposure and things of that nature. But how did you start it? How did you get comfortable on camera? Obviously, you have your performance background, but how did you get that subscriber base going?
The reason I got into it is I just feel like long term, being able to communicate via video is going to be really, really important. It's going to be a big differentiator. And it's something that I really enjoy. I really have enjoyed kind of going down the rabbit hole of, learning about all the camera stuff and learning about lighting and learning about editing. And it was sort of a vehicle to just learn all those skills. But in a lot of ways, honestly, it's kind of a way to give back to the startup community. There's a lot of bad information out there, or just not information at all. And I don't know, I just kind of like being able to put information out there and help people out, and, hopefully, push people in the right direction. And so people aren't wasting their money on things and getting scammed, because, there's a lot of scammy stuff out there taking advantage of people's hopes and dreams with their inventions.
How do you balance that? You're obviously giving advice to a certain degree, and you got to be careful with that. And obviously, people could try to do it on their own, but sometimes they'll be successful. Sometimes they're going to fall flat in their face. How do you balance because you are an attorney and you have to worry about malpractice and things of that nature. How
Yeah,
do you
totally.
navigate that line between developing this brand and developing content versus giving advice that doesn't apply and somebody potentially, coming after you for it?
Yeah, for sure. No, and I really am careful about not giving specific legal advice, and and having it be kind of general. But it's, I don't know. I feel like my responses to comments and things don't really tread in that territory, and it's general enough where it's not going to be problematic.
Are there certain mistakes that you see people make more than others, more than other mistakes when they're trying to do this on their own?
Oh yeah, for sure. And really honestly, as far as people doing it on their own, I mean, unless they just have like absolutely no money, it doesn't really make sense to do it on your own. And it should be affordable to most people who, actually have a viable business. You should be able to do, a friends and family round of, of funding initially. And those are going to be the viable businesses. So it's not, it's not usually a problem to, find people who actually are going to be, are going to be able to work with an attorney.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
some people are just going to try to navigate that on their own. So I would imagine there's some common mistakes that they make.
Yeah, for sure. So like one of the biggest ones is people don't realize that you can potentially forfeit your patent rights, specifically like if you make public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale. So if you do any of those things, you automatically lose all of your patent rights immediately in pretty much every foreign jurisdiction. And in the U.S., you have 1 year to file a patent application. Otherwise, you completely lose your patent rights. It essentially becomes public domain. So that's one of the things. It's, people will come and be like, "Hey, I've been selling this product for a couple years now, and now I want to get a patent on it." And it's like, well, no, you've obviously been making public disclosures, public uses, and offers for sale for more than a year. So you forfeited your patent rights on this. You can't file for something. Yeah.
Is it hard to go back and undo some of the errors that some people have done before they come to see you?
Yes, and that's one of the, and kind of why I do this is because there are so
You don't
many
want to see
things.
people in that situation.
Yeah, right. There's just like so many things that people can do where it's set in stone. You can't fix a lot of these things. Like, like I said, making public disclosures, public use, offers for sale, that forfeits patent rights. You can't undo that. Also, when you make filings, so for instance, people will, file, say, a provisional patent application. They just file, a, one paragraph abstract, and the USPTO is going to slap patent pending on whatever you file. Literally, I could take a piece of paper that I have, scribble on it and file it, and then I'm patent pending on that. But it's completely worthless, right? So that's another thing I see is that just because, you can, file something and get a filing number and be able to say you're patent pending, a lot of times it's absolutely worthless protection, and then people end up forfeiting patent right. That's another big issue that I see. And so those are the things I kind of try to coach people is like, don't make these major mistakes that you can't recover from.
So you've obviously accomplished quite a bit, written a book, been on TV, working with, clients that people would recognize. What's next for you in your career? You're talking about working for a firm that obviously seems like the right fit for you, supports your lifestyle, the practice that you want to build out. They're obviously growing, 10 to 40 people. What's the next evolution for you, and what would you like to see as your next goal?
Yeah, I don't know. I think just continuing to grow my practice and working with interesting clients. I'm lucky that I'm at a place in my career where, I don't need to grow my practice all that much. In a lot of ways, I like having things relatively simple and working with good clients. And I don't want to grow for just the sake of growth. I want to grow smartly and with intention and focus on just, on working with good, interesting clients. That's the main focus. The more I can do with robotics and AI, is going to be good. But I think in a lot of ways, I've kind of built the machine. It's kind of keep on doing what I'm doing.
Very cool. Well, Dylan, I appreciate you making the time to speak to us today. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.